Hi everyone, this is Peter. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being a part of this journey in my life. For those of you who don't know, this is the 12th year of a cancer journey, and recently I discovered that I had metastatic disease, and so the situation has changed and have actually started immunotherapy treatments. And so I am doing videos to leave a legacy and a part of me behind for my children and for my family, for anyone really who wants to watch this and be a part of this journey that I'm on. I am working through the Serenity Prayer and really to show how my faith intersects with my cancer journey, but today it's really about my spiritual journey. I want to share with you my story, my testimony, part of it. So the phrase today from the Serenity Prayer that I'd like to discuss is this: taking as Christ did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. And I really struggled with what to say about this phrase, but I boiled it down to really two words: acceptance and control. And under acceptance, the character defect that I struggle with is anger. So I'm going to talk about anger and acceptance. And for control, the character defects that I struggle with is fear and pride. I first of all started to look at this phrase, taking as Christ did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, from how Christ views the world. And I didn't spend much time on that. So keep in mind that these videos are just my little perspective on this. It's really how, just a point of view that I'm giving, not to be comprehensive or to go into doctrine or anything like that. But this is really just how I interpret the Serenity Prayer at this point in my life. But for Jesus, I thought about really three things. And as you know, Jesus ushered in a spiritual kingdom. So he wasn't so concerned about the political climate as you might think. And as you know, Rome had occupied Israel and really had dominated and oppressed the Jewish people. And Jesus came into that political climate and came in to usher in a spiritual kingdom. And he really, if you could summarize his mission, it would be that he came as a suffering servant. And again, he's coming back again as a reigning king for the second coming. But I think for me, what epitomizes Jesus' mission was talked about Philippians chapter 2, 6 through 8, where it talks about how that Jesus was God and is God, but he humbled himself and took on human flesh, and even more so, became a suffering servant. Then Jesus, as God in the flesh, voluntarily surrendered to a criminal's death on a Roman cross. And we all know the story of what that death means for us and what his resurrection means. And so I didn't focus too much on that. I really wanted to focus on what it means to me to take this sinful world as it is. Under acceptance, I just want to make the point that I don't believe it means apathy. I believe that God calls us Christians to be involved in every aspect of our world. So what does it mean to accept this world as it is? Well, again, I get into the anger issue, but also into control. So control is something that I struggle with. How? I want to control myself, my surroundings, my wife, my children, my church, my job, my health, my nation, other people, and the list goes on. I also want to control my relationship with the Lord. My thought can be, I will have true inner peace if everything will line up with what I want. So when I drill down into control, why do I feel that I need to have control? I really found fear and pride. Fear, really afraid of letting go and giving the reins over to Jesus. And then pride, thinking, I know better, that I know what's best. So I want to use the rest of the time to tell you how I discovered these character defects and the changes that I've made. For decades, I was heavily involved in the evangelical church in many roles, such as small group leader, teacher, men's ministry leader, elder, etc. About 3 years ago, in the context of counseling, using Celebrate Recovery steps, the therapist used these steps in Celebrate Recovery, which is really a 12-step program. Basically, I'm powerless over certain things in my life. My life had become unmanageable, and I needed to turn over to a higher power who is Jesus Christ, and then turn these things over to him. But my character defects were exposed in this process. After a step 4 process of making a spiritual and moral inventory, I came face to face with my sins, character defects. I had to face the man in the mirror. I had issues with defects like basing my value on performance, people-pleasing, wanting to be noticed, pride, rejection-based thinking, fear, anger, resentments, and the list went on. The process of pointing these out forced me to drill down deep into my hurts and broken areas. The key was humility, honesty, and transparency. I was not in control. I had to submit and surrender to the process. I had to be uncomfortable and feel pain. It was really a season of self-examination. I know that many of us have had seasons like that, but this was a season for me where I really took off the mask and looked at myself through a lens of self-examination. The verse that I wanted to read to you as far as the season of self-examination is this, very meaningful verses for me. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. I was doing beam removal or log removal. The definition of denial is a belief system not based in reality. In the past, I was confessing and repenting from sin, but there were areas in my life that were best left just swept under a rug. This process brought me out of my denial. Many times when I walked into church, I wore the mask of everything is fine. I want to be like the tax gatherer in Luke 18, 9 through 14. It's really one of my favorite passages. Luke 18, 9 through 14. Then Jesus told this story to some who had great confidence in their own righteousness and scorned everyone else. 2 men went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other was a despised tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed this prayer: I thank you, God, that I am not a sinner like everyone else. For I don't cheat, I don't sin, and I don't commit adultery. I'm certainly not like that tax gatherer. I fast twice a week and give you 1/10 of my income. But the tax gatherer stood at a distance and dared not even lift his eyes to heaven as he prayed. Instead, he beat his chest in sorrow, saying, "O God, be merciful to me, for I am a sinner." I tell you, this sinner, not the Pharisee, returned home justified before God. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. I want to be that man, the tax gatherer in the back of the church. Now I do daily inventories, and that means I examine myself daily and attempt to, quote, walk in truth. I attend meetings for CR that are confidential and anonymous, where I can, quote, confess my sins to one another so that I can be healed. And that's out of James. So why did I go into this part of my spiritual journey? Really to show that I gave up control, that God could have his way with me. And I just want to read something about that, about giving up control and God having his way in our lives. And it's really from Jeremiah 18, 1 through 6. Giving up control may be difficult for us. When we get ready for God to remove our shortcomings, we still may want to control how he does it. We are so used to calling the shots that we'll ask for God's help as long as he does it on our terms. We may demand that the changes happen on our timetable or in the order we feel ready to give them up. God doesn't work that way. That is why humility is such an important part of this step. God told Jeremiah to go to the potter's shop to learn a lesson. Jeremiah said, "I did as he told me and found the potter working at his wheel. But the jar he was making did not turn out as he had hoped, so he crushed it into a lump of clay and started again. Then the Lord gave me this message: Can I not do to you as this potter has done to his clay? As the clay is in the potter's hand, so you are in my hand." That's from Jeremiah. God told Isaiah, "What sorrow awaits those who argue with their creator? Does a clay pot ever argue with its maker? Does the clay dispute with the one who shapes it, saying, 'Stop, you're doing it wrong'? Does the pot exclaim, 'How clumsy can you be?'" When we put our life in God's hands, He will reshape us as he sees fit. It is our humility that allows us to accept the fact that he is the creator. Our new life may be similar to the one we left behind or entirely different. God is the master craftsman. Whatever he does, we can trust that he will recreate our life beautifully once we get out of his way. So I have another example for me of acceptance and giving up control. It really happens when I'm in my small groups for CR, of which I do Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. When we share in our small groups, the rules are use I and we statements only, no interruptions, no crosstalk, and no fixing others. We accept people where they are in the journey. We use personal testimonies for change in people's lives and let the Holy Spirit work in their lives. It is not about me giving advice. And I was thinking about that, and I thought what that has helped me to do is really not try to lecture or give advice to someone, but really to listen. And when God gives me the open door, then to walk through it and to communicate in love, to really approach people more from a loving basis and trying to understand them than really trying to impose what I think they should do. And so when I went through my process of exposing character defects, part of it was for me to drill down into what God has to say about these issues in my life, and that was really looking in his word. And then I drafted prayers of my own because of how fear and pride and anger manifest themselves in my life. Maybe it's different for all of us. So how did they manifest themselves in my life so that I could both accept and give control to God as I as the phrase, taking this sinful world as Christ did, not as I would have it. It's not about me. It's about Christ in me and how he wants to relate to this world. So a couple of these prayers, and when I drilled down into anger, I figured out I would get angry when I was unhappy in a situation where I wanted to control it. And so this is the prayer that I said 120 days, and now I say them. I try to do them as many times in the week as possible. The word is acceptance. I need to accept. And this is the prayer, Lord, sorry for being angry when it is not righteous anger. Because there is a point of righteous anger that Christ showed us, but most of the time for me, it's not righteous anger. Lord, give me patience and joy. Help me to accept my situations and day the way they exist, even if I am unhappy about it. Help me to accept others exactly where they are at. We are all on a journey, Lord. Help me to place people and situations into your hands. I don't want to be controlling, Lord. I want to give all these situations and people to you. I want your peace. Love, Peter. So that is just a prayer that I had written and really said for 120 days every day, and trying to remind myself about accepting people the way they are. And when I do that, then I have, I'm not angry when I accept people the way they are. And I think God flows through me more. And then as far as control goes, and really not submitting to God's plan and what he wants to do. And that's what I really, one of my prayers is about humility, which is the opposite of pride, right? And so this is the prayer, Lord, I don't want to seek attention for myself. I don't want the desire to be noticed. I want to be like John the Baptist. You must increase. I must decrease. I don't want to people please and be codependent. I want to serve others as unto you. I want to be happy and joyful, merrily to serve without being noticed and recognized. I want to be humble, not proud. I love you, Peter. So these are just a few of the prayers that I have about some of these character defects that I struggle with. But I think that for me, the phrase to accept or taking this sinful world as Christ did, not as I would have it, means that I need to exercise acceptance. And I don't believe that's apathy, just acceptance of where it's at. And then that I need to yield control over to the Lord. So thank you for listening. And I will be back again this next week. I have an immunotherapy session on Thursday. And today, of course, is Saturday. But I will report back as to how that goes as I continue to work through the Serenity Prayer. So I hope you all are well, and I love you all. Have a great day.